joining us today for episode 4 of the Life on Mission podcast. Here at Freedom Christian, we are spirit-empowered and outward-focused so that we can live life on mission. Now, that last core value of living life on mission is what this whole podcast is about. We're diving into all things discipleship on this podcast, but particularly focusing in on the discipleship framework that we use here at Freedom Christian. So we want to help every person who comes through the doors of our church learn and grow to become a follower of Jesus, ultimately becoming a mature disciple. In this podcast, it is all about teaching a discipleship framework so that you can grow and move forward in your faith to become a mature disciple, someone who looks like Christ. So today, I'm really excited because I have the special guest with me, our very own Pastor Dawson, our kids' pastor. So, Pastor Dawson, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah.
I've expanded your shot on the video.
I know, it's great.
Now it's just not you in the corner alone. And we got a plant.
I know, it's actually it feels more like a real podcast set now, as opposed to just...
Snagged it from the cafe.
Yeah, as opposed to me just sitting in the corner here looking at the camera. So now I appreciate it. I can look at you and then at the camera. I don't have to just look at the camera so much, so it's good.
Yeah,
but
your head will just be on full pivot the whole time.
Full swivel. It's good. I like it.
You're going to be like, why is my neck sore after today?
Yes, would not be surprised. So, cool. Well, yeah, thanks again so much for being here. As we get started, I'll just go ahead and begin. I want to set the stage for our conversation today. I'll just do a little review, and then we'll walk through some of what I have planned, what I brought you in here for. So, let me just start by reviewing what we've been going over in the podcast. We've been walking through our discipleship lens that we use here at Freedom. And in the last couple of episodes, we've talked about how every person is on the journey toward becoming a mature believer. That's what we're striving towards, right? And we've defined being a mature believer as walking in your calling, being who God made you to be. And as we're striving towards being a mature believer, we know that not everyone is there yet, of course, right? In fact, few of us can honestly, truthfully say that we are a mature believer. But by engaging in church, in relationships with other people, being intentional in our pursuit of Christ, by walking in what makes up our gatherings, like we've talked about in the last few episodes, we can grow and exhibit the fruit of a life that's changed. So what I want to do today, though, is go back to the stages of discipleship a little bit. And so that's why I brought Pastor Dawson in on this conversation. We talked about how there are 4 stages that can be identified as in your discipleship journey, and those are the 4 stages of being a new believer, a young believer, a growing believer, and a mature believer. And now, not everyone can neatly fit into one of those categories, and that's not the purpose of our conversation today. It's not to try to help you know, or not try to fit you into a box or anything like that. But I will say, though, that there are typical signs of a person's life, the fruit of their life, right? That can give us an idea that we probably are in one of the stages based off these signs. And so again, you might be like mostly in that new believer stage, but maybe you're also a little bit more mature in some other areas. That's great, but if you reflect on your life and you see that the majority of your signs are that you're more in that new believer stage, then maybe that's kind of where you need to realistically think about your faith and recognize the growth that you want to engage in then to pursue and mature in Christ. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I think it's important for every believer to self-reflect, to analyze their discipleship by asking the question, what stage am I at in my journey with Christ? Because if we aren't even asking that question, then we're just going to be stagnant in our faith, So it's important that we ask, well, where am I at? How am I doing in my walk with Christ? And so today we're going to be having a conversation about the typical signs of someone that is in that new believer stage. So, it'll be good. I'm excited. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. I'll just walk through some of those typical signs, and then we'll have a conversation about it. If you think of anything, though, as I'm walking through this, feel free to jump in. Some of your own experiences, maybe from your own life or your leadership as a pastor. So, cool. So some of the typical signs I would say of someone who is in that new believer stage of discipleship is that they know the basics. They know to pray, and they know to read the word. and maybe not much more beyond that. And that's okay. You know, we've all been there. I can think of in my own life, that was what, you know, when I really started to take my own faith seriously, that was what I knew to engage in was, well, I knew I needed to pray, and I knew I needed to engage in the Bible, and reading the word. And so a lot of times the sign of a new believer is that there's someone who they know that those are the most important things that they're to do. A lot of times there's just such a deep passion and a hunger for God. Along with that, there's a zeal that I would say, and I don't mean this in like a bad way, but it's just reflective of the stage that you're at. But there's a zeal without knowledge. I don't know if you've ever experienced that with some of the kids in kids ministry, but you know, there's like an excitement to maybe want to do things for the Lord, but not really maybe the knowledge or understanding of how to do it biblically or what that actually means, you know? So yeah, I feel like that's kind of another kind of key sign of a new believer. Another one would be that they're hungry for the word. They're a lot of times someone who's in that new believer stage. They really just want to dive into their Bible. They might be some of the people who actually finish the Bible reading plan first. You know, that type of mentality and approach. They're all about it. A lot of times, though, some of the challenges that new believers that I've experienced, what they encounter is they don't really fully understand yet how the gospel has impacted every area of their life. You know, they might recognize that they're saved, but they don't really realize that, okay, well, if I'm saved, then that means I need to have a change in my behavior and in my thoughts and in this area of my life. Well, I have this sin issue. I don't want to give that up. You know, like they don't even think in that regard at that point in their discipleship, you know, and that's okay. You know, everyone has to start somewhere, right? And so that's kind of what we're recognizing. Just a couple more, another couple signs. A lot of times a new believer wants to participate in everything. So they're the person who's trying to volunteer in everything. And that's not only a sign for new believers. Sometimes that's a sign for other people as well. But a lot of times, you know, they're all in, you know, and so, or they want the church to. They're like, why doesn't the church have a homeless ministry, a women's, a men's, you know, whatever the ministry is. And not that those things are bad. A lot of those things are good ministries. But, you know, they see the purpose of, well, the church should have their hand in everything. And so they don't maybe understand why they don't.
Which,
you know?
I guess that reminds me of like, I think there's kind of a trend on social media nowadays where a lot of people who they want to express their problems with the Big C church as a whole on social media.
Right.
And I've seen some videos that circulate that it's like, you know, my secular friends, if they want to help the homeless people or if they want to, you know, volunteer, they just go and do it. But my church is still deciding whether or not it's a good idea.
Right.
And to that, like when I see videos like that, I'm reminded of like, just like it's interesting because I have the perspective of a pastor, which kind of helps, but also having just been a congregant, someone who's attended the church for totally. But I think with that, like there needs to be a mentality switch, because I think with that mindset of the church is supposed to be the reason that we serve, it should be flipped. We serve because we are the church. To rely completely on the church to get you involved in your community is a false mindset.
Sure.
They have tools and resources for that. But if the church is the sole reason that you are involved in your community, then that indicates that you're fully dependent on what the church is actually designating for you to do.
Like, how are you living as the church, living that faith out?
And like, we have a lot of stuff that we do here at Freedom that is involved in our community, but we can't hit every single base within our community. Like, there's so much that we can't get into just because like we don't have the capacity. And that's okay because honestly, like the Lord asks us as believers to not just do it as a congregant member, right? Like you're not supposed to just serve with the members of your church, like directly that you go to, but rather like as an individual, like how are you impacting your community? there are plenty of instances in the Bible where,
Mm-hmm.
An individual changes a community
Right.
because of just simple obedience to the Lord.
That's good.
So when I see that kind of stuff circulate on social media, it does kind of,
Yeah.
it stirs in my heart a little bit
Yeah.
because to me, that's a lack of like discipleship.
Right.
You shouldn't be fully dependent on the church to get you to do anything.
Yeah.
Because honestly, it should come from your own willingness and your own spirit of obedience to be willing to go out into your community and serve the homeless or, volunteer. Like, your secular friends might be able to do that without like the delegation and,
Totally.
the discussion of the leadership of the church on whether or not the church can do it. Right.
Right. Right.
But no one's stopping you individually.
Right.
But yeah, that's like in reference to a very specific video I saw that like ended up going viral.
Yeah.
And immediately when I saw that, I'm like, well, the mentality's wrong.
Right.
As a church member, you should absolutely be doing that, but
Right.
you shouldn't rely on the church to be the reason that you do that.
Well, and I think too, just to add on to that, I think that's really good. A lot of times, you even think of your own life as an individual, right? Like individually, you only have so much capacity for certain things, and God has gifted you in a particular way. Now, I know we're using the homeless example, but like say you wish the church had a homeless ministry, maybe a food pantry, food bank, something like that, or was involved in senior centers in the community or something like that. Like can you as an individual pull all of those things off in your own life? Well, no, because you have your own daily needs that you're trying to do. But what do? You're gifted at one area and you try to do that. Now, we as a church, based off the gifts of people, we try to empower people to do those things in certain areas. But I do think that, sometimes there are just limited resources, meaning limited money, limited people, limited time. Those are all the resources that we're working with, right? That everyone's working with. And so there's only so much that we can do to an extent. And I think someone who is maybe new to the faith, an area of maturity that they need to grow in is not looking down on the church in that way necessarily, or not viewing that as a lack of the church, but maybe an opportunity for you to step in and take, or learn first, actually. Let me say that, learn under someone, learn under a pastor, learn under a mentor. And then, if that's still something that the Lord has, put on your heart, then go ahead and step forward into, hey, pastor, I see this need. Would it be possible for me to step in and try to meet that need in the community, with your covering, be part of what we're doing here at Freedom? Like if you demonstrate that you're someone who is humble and willing to learn and whatnot, then of course we want to empower you as best we're able to, And so I think that's typically in many ways a sign of someone who's newer to the faith.
And like, if you see a need, be the person to attempt to fill that need and be the resource that the church can ultimately use to continue the work in the kingdom. For example, my parents, probably 10 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, honestly, maybe 10 to 15, but they really had on their heart to start a foster care ministry within our church. And, like my parents have adopted 2 kids, so I have 2 adopted sisters, and it's been just very heavy on their heart for my whole life. And they saw a lack of like foster care centric ministry in our church, and they just saw the need, and they filled it, and they led it for years. And then other people stepped up and helped lead it. And I think as a result, there's very much like an emphasis on, the care for orphans within our community. But it's mainly just because they saw a need and they wanted to be the people who helped see that to fruition, whether or not they were the ones carrying on the torch after their time to move on came. But they ultimately saw a need and they filled it with their own capacity. because to ask, one of the staff members at the time to do that, it would have been implausible.
Yeah.
They just didn't have the capacity because they were doing so many other things, and they were doing a lot of other outreach things, and they were helped, and the staff came alongside them, but ultimately, like, the responsibility fell on their shoulders, and as a result, like, I think a lot of families were helped in the process. And it gave awesome. Foster families a community in which that they could come together and they could talk and just help each other with the individual discipleship as parents and foster parents. And then, like, on the flip side of that, I've had instances where, like, when you're a teenager and you're kind of younger in the discipleship road, like, you want to serve in every single capacity that you possibly can.
Right.
And there was one point where I was on like 4 different teams in our church. And I had approached one of our pastors at the time to join a 5th team.
Wow. And
like, as a teenager, like, you just have so much energy and like so much capacity because you're not doing anything other than high school and maybe a part-time job,
which feels like a lot, and it is.
It is, but
because that's the season that you're in. But
but of course, my passion was like, how can I help the church?
Right.
And I approached one of our pastors and I'm like, hey, I'd love to like join the team because this is like something I'm good at and I want to help with, and like there was a need for it, and I did have the skill for it because I help out with it now that I'm on staff. But I was told no, and I took that as, oh, like, that's like rejection, like, you don't
that's hard.
Need me. But it was more of a, not right now, you're probably maxed out and we want to make sure that you are not burned out as an individual. So that way, like,
that's good pastoral leadership right there.
What I always tell our team members is I'd rather have you on the team for a long time, for fewer increments, like, than all the time for only like a year or two, because I'd rather your long-term spiritual health be very healthy. And, because ultimately you're going to be a better leader if you're not burned out. And honestly, like, burnout isn't limited to young believers. It's very much something that affects a lot of people who've been at the church for a long time as a whole, and it affects a lot of pastors, like, nationwide. Like, if you are not dependent and reliant upon the Lord, like, your energy is going to dwindle. And I think that is one of the biggest indicators of just running on your own steam versus being replenished by the Lord. When when you are at max capacity, where do you draw energy from? What are you dependent on? So is it just solely caffeine and is it like, like, I love sleep. Like, I can sleep a lot, but ultimately, like, if I'm up, like, where's my energy coming from? Like, is it coming from like solely like caffeine, or is it from the Lord? Because if you truly love what you do, and you're doing it for the Lord, no matter what it is, whether it's a teaching job, whether it's engineering, whether it's plumbing, if you're doing it for the Lord, He's going to help your passion for it. And ultimately, like, that's going to energize you. And there will be low times where you're like, wow, I feel like everything is just exhausting. And we see that happen with people, like, in the Bible, like Moses, where he's like, oh my gosh, why did you ask me to do this, God? Like,
we just watched that episode in the Promised Land show. It's a funny show if you guys haven't seen it. You can find it on YouTube. It's basically like a telling of the Exodus in like the mockumentary style, the Promised Land. It's pretty funny. Well, we haven't finished it yet, but there's that episode and that point in the biblical story, of course, where Moses is like trying to do too much, and his father-in-law is like, "What are you doing, buddy? Like, come on."
That's why delegation's important. That's why reliance on the Lord is important. Like, if you take your focus off of what matters and just simply focus on getting a job done, it's going to be evident in the way that you work.
Yeah, you can do that for a little bit, but long term, not very long.
Exactly. So
no, that's good.
Are you plugged in, or are you running off your own battery?
Yeah.
That's the way I always see it. Like, Like if you're plugged in, as long as the power is running, you're good.
Yeah.
And if our power source is the Lord, then that's eternal energy, right? Like that's eternal
energy.
Yeah, eternal energy. But if you're running off your own battery, like, you're running off your own steam. It's very limited. No, like you'll be able to run as long as your battery is good and your juice is good.
Hooked up to a charger.
You might need to
that extra little jolt.
Yeah, you might need to hook yourself up to a charger, but ultimately like your capacity is not as great, right?
No, that's good. That's true. For sure. No, I think we've been going off on this point for a little bit, but I think it's so true. A lot of times, and when I'm like outlining the typical signs for like a new believer, young believer, like for all of them, I tried to outline like what are maybe some of the challenges, and burnout is one of them for every stage. That's not limited to being a new believer or whatever. And so I think just to kind of finish up this portion, I think one of the things that can be really challenging about like when someone gets saved, they maybe don't fully know the culture of a church, or they don't fully know the culture of what it means to be the church. Like, honestly, that's probably a doctrine that hasn't really been taught on very much in recent years, in recent decades of ecclesiology, like the theology of the church. What do we do as the church? And as a result, we have a lot of people who think the church is supposed to do, one thing or the other, and they don't. There's not a lot of biblical basis for that. But I think also a lot of times, a lot of frustration can just come from not recognizing what the church is for and what the church does. And so it's easy to just say, well, I don't get why the church isn't doing that. And they treat the church as like this faceless organization in essence, like it's in today's world, it's so easy, not just today's world, probably for centuries, it's always been easy to say, well, it's the government's problem, just blame the system, right? What system? What government? Like just the faceless, like someone else, that you aren't connected to yourself. It's easy to cast the blame on them. Whereas so I think in this instance, for someone who's a newer believer, they don't know the culture of church, what it means to be the church. And so they're like, well, why isn't the church engaging in this? And it's because that's just the overarching faceless organization, so to speak, that they're, that they aren't connected to, So I think that can sometimes be a challenge for people that are in this stage, one of the difficulties. But again, that doesn't mean that it's not a maturity that you can't move forward from and grow from. So
and every system is dependent on individuals. Like you don't have systems without people. Like there are people who've made those systems and people who have carried them out and continue to carry them out.
People that are still so that's part of the irony of such a statement like that. It's like, well, just blame the church, and it's like, well, that's you, buddy. You get that now?
You're
like
a
that's
part
kind
of it.
Yeah. And they a lot of times people don't get that now, and so that's kind of our job as pastors to try to help them to mature, to grow past that. And so,
well, and something we always teach the kids is like, if you want to grow, are you watering your relationship with the Lord? Like,
no, that's good.
Our whole thing is our whole theme is roots. Right. So
I see you even got the hoodie on there.
Yeah, little brand plug.
Was that intentional?
Yeah.
Nice. I like it.
And on the back of this one, of this hoodie, it says, grow in faith.
Yeah.
You don't grow in faith without nurturing and caring for your relationship with the Lord. That's why it's very biblical in the imagery, and often used in Scripture and even referenced by Jesus. Like, you have to take care of your heart, your mind, your spirit, by investing in it.
Yeah, that's good.
You don't just have a full-blown tree without it being watered, without it being cared for. It's not going to survive the elements if it doesn't have the nutrients and the care that it needs. It's not going to, survive the predators in its life cycle, like the birds. And we even see Jesus, approach the fig tree that is not doing its job so it's unhealthy. And he, curses it. So it's just done after that point. And then we see, Jesus use imagery of like the Gentiles being grafted in, and him being the true vine. It's all throughout Scripture. And honestly, all of creation points to God. So to not look at the imagery around us and use it as like a biblical frame point and perspective to be able to understand our own relationship with the Lord, it would be foolish. So that's why we see it all throughout the Bible and all throughout Jesus's words and lessons and parables. It's because it's to help us understand our own relationship with the Lord, which is why we lean into it for kids ministry, because it is very visual. And we always reinforce it with the kids. If you want your faith to grow, you have to be the ones that care about it.
No, I love that.
We just taught them yesterday. We watched the Charlie Brown Christmas special.
Come on.
And they have
Linus
the little
is the
tree.
best. Linus is my favorite.
Linus is great. Yeah.
He's so cool.
He is.
He's who I want to be.
And
the little tree.
And ironically, like Linus is the first one to approach the tree, and he wraps his blanket around the bottom.
Come on.
And what we taught the kids is like Linus is the one who reinforced the base of the tree. It wasn't able to stand on its own. So you have to be the one who invests in your own spiritual development, but there are people who will surround you and help, just strengthen your foundations. That's what church is all about. That's what discipleship programs are all about. That's what pastoral ministry is all about. It's designed to help you grow in your own faith, but ultimately it comes down to, are you going to take the long-term care to make your own spiritual development successful down the road?
That's really good. Yeah. No, that's a great point. Sorry, now I'm just thinking about Charlie Brown Christmas. It's just so
it's
good.
Great. It's classic.
Out of all the like classic, like kind of shorter Christmas, like you have Charlie Brown, the classic Grinch, and then all the like claymation ones, I just, nothing really beats Charlie Brown Christmas. I think it's
I honestly don't like the claymation ones. No, it's a very uncanny valley for me.
I know.
I get like a queasy feeling watching it. I don't know why. I maybe just didn't like it as a kid, and
that's funny.
It's kind of leaked into my adulthood, but I guess ironically that can kind of affect our perspective as Christians too, is like our past perspectives.
Go there, Dawson.
Yeah.
Go there.
Our past perspectives, our past feelings and emotions.
Oh, that's good.
How are they affecting your current journey with Christ? Do you have church hurt? And I used air quotations if you're listening for that, but church hurt is ultimately just people hurt. You're hurt by the people in the systems that you can't blame it on the church as a whole. Because ultimately what church is designed for is for you to have closeness with the Lord. And if you get hurt by people in the process, that's on the people, not on the Lord. So don't let that distance you from Christ himself, because he's not the one who hurt you. In fact, he's been reaching his hand out to save you this whole time. And, some of that hurt tends to come from ourselves too. We tend to...
Maybe our own misunderstandings, our own misinterpretations, our own lack of understanding. And, there's a variety of different...
and if you're looking to the church for absolute authority in your own spiritual growth, I'd say that mentality is also wrong. We're here to help on Sundays and Wednesdays and throughout the week when we have opportunities for you to grow, but your growth should be coming at home first and foremost. And the church is designed for community growth. It's designed for community discipleship. How are you growing with other people? If you come in on a Sunday or a Wednesday and your mentality is, I need to be fed, then you're only eating on Sundays and Wednesdays sometimes.
I talked about that a little bit in the last episode. So hopefully you guys have listened to that one so that these thoughts are, kind of goes in alignment with it. So no, that's good. I think
don't just wait to be like stuffed. and gorge yourself
totally.
on Sundays and Wednesdays, or even just Sundays, honestly, for
sure.
a lot of people in general. Like, it's mostly just Sundays. But don't just expect to be completely filled like a Thanksgiving dinner every single every single week, because if you're, as you know, if you're not taking care of yourself and you're not eating on a regular basis, you're going to be hungry. So if you're coming in on a Sunday and you haven't fed yourself all week, of course you're going to be starving for it.
Yeah.
But
and no, we're not talking about like intermittent fasting or anything, you know, like that's,
exactly. Like,
there's not a spiritual analogy there that you could apply. That's not
like
applicable.
Jesus literally starts the Lord's Prayer, give us today our daily bread. It's daily. It's not weekly.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that we are maintaining spiritual growth, maintaining relationship with the Lord. And if you're just waiting for your once a week fill, then it can be a danger to your growth.
No,
and that's when you can ultimately have issues too, like with like specific things just said where you're like, I don't know if I like this. If you don't like it, study at home.
That doesn't need to be like a breaking off point. Man, that's so prevalent in culture and the world around us right now. Like, it's like, well, I was all in with this church or this organization or whatever for a long time, but then they said this one thing and now I'm out, and it's just like, okay, like, does that really need to be the ultimate determining factor? Like, why, whatever it might be. I think we're just so easy to just, it's the effect of cancel culture in essence, but
leadership is
not
human
to get
too.
Too much into that, but
like as much prep as goes into it, sometimes you're going to like slip up and make a mistake. And I had one the other week. I was talking about the one book of the Bible that does not like mention God's name specifically, and I flip-flopped Esther and Ruth. And I said Ruth on accident, and I didn't catch it until one of my leaders was like, "Did you know you flip-flopped it?" And I was like, "Oh." No. I'm like, because I had just studied it earlier that week, and I'm like, man, and it tied into what we were talking about, because we were talking about how every book of the Bible directs attention to the story of Jesus. It's not just the four Gospels. It's not just the New Testament.
Story that
everything in the Old Testament directs us to the story of Jesus and the story of redemption for our entire lives. And my point in bringing up the one book that doesn't mention the name of God was that even that book directs us towards the story of Jesus. And I flip-flopped them and didn't catch it. And so what I did was I like regathered the group, because we broke out into small groups, and I'm like, all right, real quick, I just want to correct myself. I was wrong. And I let them know, I'm like, sometimes your leaders are going to be wrong. And that's okay, because, we're human. But I want you guys to be able to catch it and, correct it in your own hearts and minds. Really if we don't catch it on accident, because as much as we study and as much as we put in all the prep and everything, sometimes we're going to miss
We're not going to get it right 100%.
And, know, it's all about perspective and interpretation for some passages of Scripture. And so there's so many ways that people have preached on the writing in the sand. Like, every time I hear a message on it, it's a different perspective and different take.
That is totally one of those passages that you're like, all right. We'll see what the next guy says.
So I think
the next person preaching it.
But I think the takeaway should be the only thing that you should have as like ironclad and like truth in your own heart, no matter what, unshakable, is the gospel itself, because that is God-breathed. That is the gospel, so it's the truth.
Well, it's the whole scripture. The whole scripture is unchanging, and now someone else's interpretation of it, that's what we don't treat as ironclad, so like,
exactly.
Yes, it's the gospel, meaning the whole, from Genesis to Revelation, because you do even have some people that are like, oh, well, only the four gospels are like the explicit truth, and it's like, no, that's not, that ain't it either, so I think that's good.
And pastors, their jobs are to shepherd. Right? We're supposed to keep you in the right area, right? But ultimately, you're going to have sheep that wander off a little bit, get a little lost. And then, like our job as pastors is like, hey, like, come on back over here.
So
yeah,
let's just go ahead and kind of go off of that a little bit, because some of the questions that I had written down here are based off like your experience as a pastor. Obviously, you're our kids pastor, so you're working more with kids ministry, but you're also
got a lot of baby sheep.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't run off as much.
No. I love it.
They're loud though.
I'm just thinking of like the little like claymation sheep, you know, like Shaun the Sheep or whatever, just like jumping around.
These kids love Shaun the Sheep too.
I believe it. But like, so your job mainly is working with kids, but you also have your leadership team, which are adults and youth, and you also oversee like our media and our marketing and stuff like that. So what are, some of these signs that we've talked about are like good things, like things that signs of a new believer. Some of them are good, like knowing the basics, having a passion for the word of God. The zeal part of zeal without knowledge is good. The without knowledge part isn't good, So how do you, as a pastor, I guess, how do you approach some of these different signs when you see them in a person's life? Or how, maybe a better way to put it is, how would you pastorally exhort someone like, hey, this is an area that I think you can grow and mature in, and when do you need to just kind of let the sheep like make their own mistakes, or when, because there's this example even of like, shepherds sometimes would break the legs of their sheep so that they wouldn't wander off, which sounds really like intense and kind of cruel, but no, it was to help teach the sheep like, no.
And we're not breaking kids' legs.
You stay.
Yes. If their leg is broken, it's because they ran into a wall or something, or like.
That is not Pastor Dawson.
Yeah.
Let the record show. But no, you know what I mean? So like sometimes as a pastor, there's that correction part where you're working with the sheep to help them from wandering off. And then other times you're maybe just not letting them wander too far, of course, but letting them to a degree make their own mistakes. And it's up to you to remain patient and gracious with them. So how do you pastorally approach that with those that you're leading?
Yeah, kids ministry is all about patience and mistakes, and kids are very much still learning how to be a human,
how to exist,
how to exist, right?
Yeah, totally.
Some of the kids aren't even aware that they're a person, right?
Self-awareness.
They haven't hit the self-awareness age yet. Normally, by the time they are in our elementary group, like they're all very self-aware. Yeah. But they're still not aware of their tendencies and like the way that they act at home is typically not a full. Like, we don't get that at church.
Maybe 75% of that.
Yeah, we get a taste of it, and we get like a perspective of it, but that's why we always tell parents discipleship primarily will come from home.
Right. No,
we're here to give you the tools and the resources and teach them as they go along, but if they don't have discipleship at home, they're not going to grow as individuals. Right. And so that's the most important thing, I would say, for kids specifically, is, are they being discipled by their parents or their grandparents or whoever is at home with them on the regular? If they're not, and their only spiritual development is on Sundays or Wednesdays, then they're going to come into church starving.
Totally.
So that's the big thing. And with kids, I can always kind of gauge where they're at based on like the questions they're asking.
Sure.
There's in kids ministry, we get a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And they range all over the place.
I was always that kid who, not in kids ministry, but with my parents, I would ask them so many questions.
Yeah. And questions are great.
Yeah.
I always
shows you're thinking.
Yeah,
thinking about something.
Exactly. And our second like core value within Roots Kids is to know what you believe. And with knowledge, you have to ask questions. Otherwise, you're not pursuing that knowledge. You're not trying to learn things that you don't know the answer to. And I've had questions that kids have asked me where I've had to just tell them, hey, I honestly don't know the answer to that. Because sometimes they'll ask about like prophetic stuff.
Sure.
And
Interesting.
because kids are always very concerned about the future because that's all they have. They don't have much of a past yet.
Right.
It's all what's
Totally.
gonna come
No,
up.
that's a good point.
And so there's also a natural like fear of, what if this all happens before
Sure.
my time?
Yeah.
Like before I'm a full adult.
Yeah.
And
Like an end times fear in a lot of ways. Yeah.
there's an end times fear, or there's just a fear of eternity, because
it's unknowable. You can't really.
Eternity is hard to comprehend when you've only had 5 to 8 years of life. You know, that's a lot to comprehend because your perspective is limited.
Dude,
So,
I was also that kid. Like,
oh,
I remember
me too.
Anytime, like I'd be in main service or whatever, and like any conversation about like end times or the rapture or anything like would come up, I would just feel like sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
Because I was like, that's the scariest thing I could ever think of, you know?
Yeah.
Is like
was not being there with your family.
Yeah, not being there with my
those
family.
You love.
Something happening in the world that I was like unprepared for, you know? Like you haven't walked through that, you know, and so you're just kind of like, and
I think with that is a natural immaturity within faith, is the fear of the next life, the fear of eternity with Christ, because there's not an understanding of Christ is everything. Christ is ultimately what eternity is about.
Right.
And if you don't love the Lord to that full extent, to the extent of having a relationship with him that has been dedicated to him and growing with him for years and years and years, or if it's just off passion and zeal, it's going to be a very different perspective, because you know, if you're new to the faith or if you're a kid, like most of the time your perspective is, I love God, I love Jesus, but I'm just getting started. Like, I don't want to
live my life.
I just want to live, right?
Yeah.
As a kid, my perspective was, well, I want to get married one day. Like, I want to finish high school. I want to finish college. I want to, you know, have a house one day. Like all these things that you want to have.
I want to be married, have my own kids, see them do the same things I got to do, you know, all the things.
And then when you reach more spiritual maturity, the perspective goes, well, none of this matters in the long term. All that matters is bringing more people with me to eternity, because Jesus is the most important thing in my life.
Right.
And it's okay for kids to have that natural fear, because they're just starting off. They're
just growing.
They're figuring out what their faith journey looks like. And with kids, it's mostly zeal and like just faith.
More zeal.
Zeal and more zeal and just faith,
totally.
And that's what the Lord encourages us to have as Christians, is faith like a child. And that's because their zeal and their belief is unshakable and undoubting, and it's honestly inspiring as a leader to them. I'll look at them and I'll be like, wow, you just don't even like question any of this, because those questions typically come later as adults.
Yeah, totally.
So I can see like why Jesus states that is just have faith that's immovable. So that's the beauty of being a new believer or a young believer. And we can typically see when like the growth happens for the kids, and we'll honestly we'll defer them to being baptized until they've reached more of a spiritual maturity.
Sure.
If the parents are really, and you know, they think that their kids are ready for it, we trust their parents' judgment for sure.
Parental judgment trumps.
Exactly. Because they're the ones discipling
or whatever.
But every time a kid is ultimately going to be baptized, what we do is we just sit down with them. I'll sit down with them and I'll talk to them. I'll get a perspective and an understanding of, do they know what this is? Do they know what this next step is? Are they there spiritual maturity wise? If they are, then this is great. It's a next step in their journey with Christ, and it's an act of obedience and faith. And typically it kind of happens around that 4th to 5th grade age, where they get to the point in their spiritual journey where they start asking a little bit more questions. they're in the pursuit of more knowledge and more understanding in their relationship with the Lord. And they're typically very eager to serve and very, ready to get involved and take their relationship with the Lord to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really awesome to see, really inspiring.
Yeah.
So
no, that's awesome.
From the marketing side, it's a very different perspective, because the social media world is very, very different.
Crazy.
It's very crazy.
It's wild.
Honestly, there's a depression epidemic and anxiety epidemic going around our nation, around the world, honestly. And I think a lot of that stems from social media. Mm-hmm. When you have knowledge and at the tips of your fingers, whether it's knowledge that's correct or not, you're ultimately going to be a lot more informed in a lot of areas, and some of it, it's not going to be the best for your well-being, right? Yeah. We don't always need to know what's going on in all the way across the world, right? Because it doesn't always affect us. Sometimes it's very important to know.
Right. Okay, so we lost power to the camera just for a minute there, so I don't know exactly when this cut off, but we were talking. Refresh my memory. We were talking about
the modern perspective of knowing everything that's going on in the world.
That's right. Thank you.
Like even going back to the 80s is a very different mentality than the 2010s and 2020s.
Right.
Knowing everything that's going on isn't always a benefit.
Right.
Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
Because a lot of things out there, news and social media, it's designed to bring anxiety, to bring stress, to bring more questions.
Click more, follow more, do whatever more.
Yes,
to engage with it more. Ultimately,
having a marketing degree gives me a little bit of insight on how that's designed, and it is very much to get you coming back, because that is how companies make money. That is how people make money. It's engagement. It's views. So navigating that also as a church is very interesting. Yeah. Because honestly, social media is a very, very amazing tool.
Right.
So I don't think it
can't be disengaged.
Exactly.
It's something we have to engage in.
Any tool historically can be used for good, or it can for evil. You take a hammer, for example. You can use it to fix something, or you can use it to smash someone's head. Right. Yeah. You can use whatever tool is given to you for good or evil. That is the beauty and the detriment to being human and having free will, is you can use whatever resource you have for the glory of God or for human desire and evil. And you see both on social media, honestly. So the trick as the church is, how do we balance using this as a resource to bring people into the church without going too far and without doing too much where it becomes a detriment. Right. There's a lot of trending things that go on, and I think some of them are good
and fun to engage in, and it's a way to actually draw people into our other content. So it's we don't do it just because, it's something kind of fun to pass the time for us as pastors or whatever. No, it's no, this is a way that we're trying to get people to actually engage with the meaningful content on the rest of our page.
And I think content that helps people realize that the church is human. Yeah. I think that stuff helps. We've honestly, I've made a handful of funny videos just for promotion and for the congregation to know what's going on with the kids ministry or what's coming up.
Kickball bonanza.
I enjoy that kind of stuff because it's for the use of promotion, but more so it shows people this is my heart, this is who I am. There's jokes and there's funny stuff, but
there's references outside of church, so it's oh, this pastor watches that show, or they know this thing, and it's oh, okay, there's a level of
we're all people.
Relational,
and when you disconnect the people from the systems, that's when you get the issues. And so social media is very much a balancing act.
Just to tag onto that real quick, I heard a pastor, I shared this in one of my sermons last year, I think, But I heard a pastor refer to social media as the modern day Areopagus. And what that means is like in the book of Acts, when Paul is going to the city of Athens, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Areopagus was like the high rock in the city where the philosophers of the day would go to debate anything
Mm-hmm.
and everything. Like they would go to that rock to debate the philosophical ideas of the day. What is truth? What is not truth? What's good? What's not good? Etc. And Paul, knowing that, went to the Areopagus and said, "Hey, I know you guys you have a statue to the unknown God or whatever. Let me tell you about him." And that was his in, so to speak. And so, in many ways, this pastor was saying, it's Pastor Josh Howerton out of Lake Point Church in Texas, but he said that social media is the modern day Areopagus, meaning that it's the place where ideas are shared and like competing philosophies. And so, with that being said, I think that is a space that we as the church need to engage in. And now, does that mean we need to be, to what level do we need to engage with it? How do we need to engage with it?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's a different question, but I do think there is to a degree, a responsibility. Like we can't just back out of it. We can't just bury our heads in the sand. And for some people, like I'm just really not a social media person very much at all. I post maybe once a year. Usually, lately it's been only once every 2 years. I just don't like to do it. I check social media maybe like once a day. That's kind of what I try to do, unless people send me funny videos, in which case maybe I check it a little more, like this guy.
I got you.
Yeah. All the Emperor's New Groove videos and everything like that. But I think, there's like, for me, I see a lot of pastors utilizing social media as a great platform to spread the gospel. And I've wondered, is that something I should be doing as a pastor? And I just feel like for me, in this season of life, the answer is no. And that's fine. I don't need to be. But in the future, maybe that is something I would engage in more. I don't know. But for right now, the answer is no. But can I direct other people to follow, people that I think are good? Absolutely. Can we as a church, can we utilize, your gifts and talents to for our church's page, and things like that. And I think that can be to the benefit of the church and therefore the kingdom of God,
Well, and when Paul went to Areopolis, like he wasn't going to worship other gods.
Right, no.
He went to evangelize.
Right. That was his whole
point.
And
I think that's the key in understanding social media. Are you going to create worship for your own self or your own God?
Right.
Idolatry looks very different in today's world.
Yeah.
But it's there.
Yeah. No, it's true.
We tend to worship not a God, but our phones and everything that is in front of us.
Yeah, everything that's on there, consuming entertainment 24/7.
What is taking your attention away from the one true God?
Right.
What is taking your attention away from the unknown God?
Right.
Right? So everyone on social media that, they don't know God.
Right.
Social media has kind of become a God in a sense, where we spend just mindless time.
Yeah.
Like scrolling through it. And it's okay for an entertainment side of things. But is it creating a distance and a separation between you and God? And that's when it becomes idolatry.
Right.
Anything can become idolatry if it comes between you and God. Is it your priority?
Yeah.
Is it something that, worship a lot of times from a church perspective is, we're singing songs, we're lifting our hands in the Pentecostal church, we're moving a lot, right? Other churches, it might be a hymnal.
Yeah.
A lot of times our perspective with worship is it's music based, but no, it's a heart situation. Yeah. It is a heart placement. Where is your heart? Is there something in between your heart and God?
Right.
Because that's what's getting your heart's attention. And that is what idolatry stems down to, is not singing songs towards it, right? Because you're not
not
singing songs to you're not singing songs towards social media.
Right.
You might be making music content on it, but I wouldn't say that is worship. I'd say worship is, where is your time going?
Right.
Where is your heart directed towards?
I was just gonna say, no, that's really good. There's something Pastor Bill always says, right? And I think he's quoting his dad. But he says, God doesn't care about what you have as long as what you have doesn't have you.
Mm-hmm.
God doesn't care about what you have as long as what you have doesn't have you. And I think that's just such a good quote when it comes to this issue of idolatry and valuing things, above the place of the Lord in our hearts, And
the Bible tells us wherever your treasure is, that's where your heart is.
Boom.
So that is, I feel like, what idolatry can stem down to.
That's good.
In the modern world, because there's other religions, but God's commandment, in the Old Testament, it was for his people.
Right.
It was for those who know to worship him. Those who don't, that's idolatry already, because it's a different God, right? It is one of those named gods.
Right.
But from the Christian perspective, are you going to social media? Are you going to Areopolis and are you worshiping something else? Or are you coming in with the perspective of, my heart is set apart for the Lord. So I'm coming in here with the perspective of, I need to bring Jesus to these people who don't know. That was the whole job and purpose of the Israelites, to be a set apart people. And if they were worshiping idols, they weren't doing that because they were like the rest of the world.
Right.
So if we're like the rest of the world on social media, we're not set apart on social media.
No, that's good.
So when I would then go a step further, and this isn't like directed towards anyone, because I don't care necessarily in that regards, because it's a personal thing, like between you and the Lord. But on social media, are you posting stuff that is reflecting your relationship with the Lord? I'm not saying every single post needs to be like
a Bible verse,
or like, I'm so thankful that God gave me this, but is every single post something that could be, directed back to the Lord? Like, you're celebrating your family. You don't have to necessarily be like, God gave me this family, yada, yada, yada. But, are the pictures something, or the video, is it something that people see that and they're like, wow, they're different?
Yeah. There's something holy about that person. That's what should be said of us, is we want to be holy. That's what it means to be set apart. Or what set apart means is, you know what I'm saying.
And from a church social media marketing perspective, it's, how do we stand out from all the businesses? How do we stand out from all of the people on social media as a place that people want to go to, not because they have something, that we have something to sell them.
Sure.
I think of it from like Paul's perspective. Paul was a master at marketing. Not in the modern sense where like everything, like it's not paid ads or whatever, but in the sense that he knew how to reach people where they were and show them exactly what the gospel offered them that they didn't have.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like a selling tactic. It was more so, I know you need this. You just don't know you need it yet.
Right.
And that's exactly what he did in Areopolis was, you don't even know what you've been missing.
Right.
But here's what it is.
Let me tell you.
And that should be the perspective and the approach with church marketing. Is they don't even know what they're missing, but we need to show them what they're missing. We need to let them know that there is something here that we offer that the world can't offer.
Yeah. No,
we're not selling them Jesus. We're just showing them what they're missing, and that is Jesus.
Right.
So the approach in marketing is very different from a biblical perspective. It is, because we're not selling anything.
Right.
You don't need to sell Jesus to anyone, because what you win people with is ultimately what their salvation is based off in their own. And like, if you win someone because like you're just playing games the whole time, they come back to church and they're like, church is where I play games. So in kids ministry, we put the emphasis on there's a lesson every single time we have anything, because we want them to be won to the gospel for the right reason, not because it's, fun and games. And there is that, because church has that.
Right.
But ultimately, the best part about being a Christian is the only reason to be a Christian, and that is Christ.
Right.
And that's why Paul is so massively successful as a missionary, is he just sees the need in people and shows them how Jesus meets that need, that hole in their heart that they don't know what to fill it with.
Yeah.
Like salespeople and sales tactics by businesses, they know how to do that in a different way.
Right. For a different purpose, different focus, different
exactly.
reason. Yeah.
Like it's things, you don't have this, so you need this. Right. It'll like marketing slogans are typically all centered around, we have this and you need it.
You need it. You want to feel better. You want to feel more attractive. So much of it is built around sexuality, honestly. It's to help you be more attractive, more happy. You'll experience greater happiness.
It's all to fill the hole in your heart that really should be filled with Jesus.
Right. That's
and
good.
Paul just knew how to communicate that really, really well to people. And honestly, the disciples did too, and that's why they became the apostles.
Right.
Because I think that is ultimately one of the later stages of discipleship is, are you going, like the disciples, while they were with Jesus, they learned from him. They gathered all of this information, which we get to read about because they documented it, thankfully. But when they transitioned from disciple to apostle, it became a very outward approach, outward focus. The disciples still very much reached out to the community. Jesus empowered them while he was with them, and gave them authority. But when he left earth, it came down to them to spread the gospel throughout the entire world. And because of their faithfulness, to go from disciple to apostle, that's why we have the gospel today. That's why we have Christianity still around, because they were faithful to what God had bestowed upon them and taught them while Jesus was here on earth. And it led to, probably the greatest example of discipleship, which is why they're the disciples, right?
The apostles.
And the apostles. So I think the goal with discipleship long term should be, are you going from someone who knows what they believe to someone who grows it and lives it with, not just zeal, but knowledge and the ability to share that knowledge and that passion with the world. Yeah.
So that's what we're going to be getting into in future episodes. So that's kind of honestly probably a good kind of stopping place for us today. Just because that's where, we've talked so much about the new believer kind of today. And so we're going to be looking at the next couple stages in our next few episodes. And so, I think, thank you so much, Pastor Dawson, for being on our podcast today and for sharing all your experience, your thoughts, your insight and everything. Really, really appreciate you taking the time to do that with us. In our next episode, we're going to be talking about being a young believer. So kind of, the next stage up from being a new believer. And again, this isn't related to a person's age. Sometimes it can be, but it's not always, some people, become a new believer when they're a kid, young believer when they're like a teenager, and then they stay in that phase for about 40, 50, 60 years. And we don't want to do that, right? We want to grow. We want to mature, like you're saying, And so...
and sometimes you re-enter that stage because you don't take care of your heart. So.
Absolutely. So it's not always linear. It's cyclical. And then maybe backwards cyclical, but then forward, and we're trying to move forward. We're trying to grow. We're trying to become the disciples that God created us to be, and become like him. And so, thank you again, Pastor Dawson, for joining us today. Join us next time in our next episode as we break down stages or the signs of being a young believer. I think we have another guest lined up for that one, so I'll wait to reveal that when we record that podcast, and so that'll be really great. But I hope and pray that these episodes are encouraging you and building you up. Thank you again for your understanding as we had the camera battery die, so hopefully we picked up at the right spot for that.
We're a bunch of chatty Cathys.
Yeah, we do what we can, so...
That's what happens when you get me on an episode. It goes long.
That's true. This is definitely the longest one so far. We'll see if it stays the longest one. I think our next guest can be
getting me outside of kids ministry where
so.
I don't have to keep everything 5 to 10 minutes in lesson.
I tell you, it's our next gen team. These guys. No, I'm just kidding. They're great. We love them. So, hey, also, I just want to encourage you, feel free to share this with your friends. You can like and comment on it, I believe, on Spotify. We have the video up there. And so, like and comment on it so that more people can hear about it. But most of all, thank you guys so much for joining us. Come back for our next episode in 2 weeks, and may God give you his grace to live life on mission. Thank you so much.
See you.